The grease still hung in the air, 40 years old, trapped in the walls like a ghost of hash browns and coffee. The chrome on the counter had gone dull, but underneath the grime you could see where 10,000 elbows had polished it smooth. The booth sagged like tired waitresses at the end of a double shift, and when the wind came through the broken window in the back, the whole place seemed to exhale, a long, rattling breath that said it had been holding on, waiting. I found it on the coldest night of March, my daughter Maya asleep against my chest in a produce box I'd lined with my only jacket. We'd been living in my car until the repo man found us at the Walmart lot. After that, it was doorways, shelters when we could get in, underpasses when we couldn't. Maya was 7. She deserved better than the smell of exhaust and the sound of shopping carts at 4 a.m. The diner sat at the dead end of Commercial Street, where the asphalt crumbled into weeds. The sign still hung. Rosie's, open 24 hours. But someone had spray-painted, closed forever across the door. I only tried the handle because Maya was shivering. It opened. Inside, the place was a time capsule. Menus still stacked by the register. Salt shakers on every table. A calendar on the wall stopped at October 1986. And tucked under the register in a grease-stained envelope taped to the underside of the cash drawer, a single piece of paper, a quitclaim deed signed but never filed, and a handwritten note that said, "For whoever needs this place more than I did." That night, wrapped in booth cushions that smelled like old vinyl and dreams, I made a decision. We weren't leaving. Chapter 1. The night we stopped running. They say when you've got nothing left, you've got nothing left to lose. But that's a lie rich people tell themselves. When you've got nothing, you've got everything to lose. Your daughter's trust, her childhood, the last shred of your dignity. I'd lost my job, my apartment, my car, and most days I felt like I was losing my mind. But I hadn't lost Maya, and I wasn't about to start. The diner found us, or maybe we found each other, on a Tuesday in March when the temperature dropped to 12 degrees. Maya's lips had gone blue. My hands shook too hard to hold the phone I'd been using to search for emergency shelter beds all full. We'd walked for hours, her tiny fingers locked in mine, until we turned down Commercial Street by accident, following what I thought was the glow of a convenience store. Instead, we found Rosie's. The building slouched between a boarded-up dry cleaner and an empty lot where shopping carts went to die. 2 stories flat-roofed, with big plate glass windows that someone had covered with plywood from the inside. The neon sign, Rosie's in cursive script with a coffee cup underneath, hung dark and tilted, held by a single rusted chain. The other chain had snapped years ago. I'd walked past 100 places like this, but Maya was shivering so hard her teeth chattered, and I was out of options. The front door hung crooked in its frame, the lock mechanism broken or picked long ago. It opened with a groan that sounded almost human, surprised maybe that anyone still cared. Inside, the smell hit first. Old grease, mildew, something sweet and rotten underneath, but it was warm, warmer than outside. The building held heat like it held memories. I used my phone's flashlight to navigate. The beam caught chrome and formica, red vinyl booths with stuffing bleeding out, a long counter with 10 stools, 8 still standing. The floor was checkerboard linoleum, black and white, though decades of foot traffic had worn the pattern into ghosts of themselves. Behind the counter, a kitchen window opened onto darkness. On the walls, framed photos, faded now, of what looked like the same woman in different decades. Dark hair in the 50s, a beehive in the 60s, a perm in the 80s. Always the same smile. Maya had stopped shivering. "Is this a restaurant, Daddy?" "It was," I said, "a long time ago. Can we stay, just for tonight?" I should have said no. This was trespassing, squatting, the kind of thing that gets you arrested and gets your daughter taken by CPS. But her face, God, her face. She looked hopeful for the first time in weeks. "Just for tonight," I told her. I found candles in a drawer by the register, emergency candles, the kind restaurants keep for blackouts. They still worked. In their light, the diner looked almost alive again. The shadows moved like customers. The draft through the broken back window sounded like conversation. I pulled cushions from the least damaged booth and made a nest in the corner, away from the windows. Maya curled into me, her breath evening out almost immediately. I sat awake, listening to the building breathe, the creak of settling wood, the tick of cooling pipes, the distant drip of water somewhere in the walls. That's when I found it. Cleaning up before we slept, trying to make the space less depressing, I'd been wiping down the register area. The cash drawer hung open, empty except for dust and a dead cockroach, but something made me look underneath. Taped to the underside of the drawer, covered in 40 years of grease and grime, was a manila envelope. Inside, a quitclaim deed for the property, dated 1985, signed by someone named Rosemarie Cordero, but never notarized or filed, and folded with it a handwritten note on diner stationery, the ink faded but legible. To whoever finds this, I couldn't keep it going. The neighborhood changed, my regulars moved away, and after Vincent died I didn't have the heart anymore. I'm too old to fight City Hall about the back taxes, but someone younger, someone with more fight in them, might be able to save this place. The deed's here. The building's paid for. The only debt is to the city, $8,400 last I checked. If you got the courage I don't have anymore, take it. Make it live again. For whoever needs this place more than I did. Rosie. My hands shook as I read it twice, 3 times. A building with a deed. Back taxes, sure, but manageable maybe somehow. And a woman's blessing, 40 years old but still breathing in the ink. Maya stirred in her sleep. Daddy, it's okay, baby. Go back to sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I sat with that note until dawn, watching the first light come through the gaps in the plywood, and I thought about what it meant to be given a second chance by someone you'd never meet. Outside, the city woke up. Traffic sounds, a bus hissing to a stop, someone shouting. Inside Rosie's, everything stayed quiet, waiting to see what I'd decide. Chapter 2. The morning after. Maya woke to daylight leaking through the plywood seams, golden stripes cutting across the dusty floor. She sat up, blinking, then looked around like she'd woken in a museum. We're still here. We're still here, I confirmed. Is it ours? The question hung in the air with the dust motes. I thought about the deed, the note, the impossible algebra of $8,400 in back taxes, when I had $17 in my pocket and no way to earn more without an address. Not yet, I said. Maybe not ever, but we can stay for a while. Can I look around? I nodded and she was off, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, opening drawers and peering into cabinets like an archaeologist. Kids are like that. They can find wonder in ruins. I used the morning light to really see the place. It was worse than I'd thought. The roof had leaks, water stains blooming across the ceiling tiles in the back corner. The kitchen was a disaster, with a grease trap that smelled like something had died in it. The bathroom didn't work. No water to the building at all. The electrical panel hung open, half the breakers missing. But bones? The bones were solid. Concrete block construction, good foundation. The coolers were shot, but the hood system over the grill looked intact. The counter under the grime was real marble. The booths were salvageable. Maya called from the kitchen. Daddy, come look. I found her standing on a milk crate reaching into a high cabinet. She pulled down a shoebox, dusty but intact, and handed it to me with ceremony. Inside, receipts. Hundreds of them. Rubber banded by year going back to 1959. I flipped through them. Suppliers, repairs, permits. And underneath, a stack of photographs. Rosie, younger, standing in front of the diner on opening day. Rosie behind the counter, mid-laugh. Rosie with a man who must have been Vincent, his arm around her shoulders. Rosie older, alone, standing in front of the same diner, but the smile had changed. There was a photo of the neighborhood, too, from the 70s looked like. The street crowded with cars, other businesses open, people walking. This place had been the heart of something once. Who's the lady? Maya asked. Her name was Rosie. She owned this place. Where is she now? I don't know, baby. Gone, probably. A long time ago. Maya touched the photo gently. She looks nice. Yeah, I think she was. That afternoon I walked to the county clerk's office, Maya's hand in mine. The building was downtown, all marble and echoes, and I felt every bit of my 3-day-old clothes and unwashed hair. But the clerk at the property records desk didn't judge, just pulled up the file when I gave her the address. Rosie's Diner, she said, reading her screen. Delinquent taxes since 1985, 40 years. She whistled. That's accumulated to, let's see, $23,680 with penalties and interest. My stomach dropped. I'd imagined $8,400 was bad. This was impossible. But, she continued, looks like the property's in a redevelopment zone. City's been trying to figure out what to do with these old commercial spaces. If you could prove intent to rehabilitate, sometimes they'll work out a payment plan. You'd need to file an appeal, show up to a hearing, probably put down at least 10%. 10% of $23,680. That was $2,368. I had $17. Is there? I cleared my throat. Is there anything else, any other options? She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something shift in her face. You planning to actually fix the place up? Yes, ma'am. You got the deed? I have a quitclaim deed. Signed, but never filed. Bring it in. Let me see what I can do. No promises, but there's a program. Community Restoration Initiative. It's not much, but it might buy you time. Walking back, Maya asked, Are we in trouble? No, baby. It's complicated. Can we still live at the restaurant? I stopped walking. Live. She'd said it so simply, like it was already decided, like that pile of grease and broken dreams was already home. For now, I said. That night I cleaned. I found a hose bib outside that still worked and filled buckets using dish soap from under the counter. Decades old but still slippery. I scrubbed the front windows from the inside, and when the plywood came off, the streetlight poured in, turning everything amber. Maya helped, washing down the counter with a rag. We worked in silence, and slowly, the place began to breathe a little easier. Around midnight, I sat in one of the booths exhausted and looked around. It still looked terrible, but it looked like the kind of terrible you could fix, given time. Above the counter, someone had carved words into the wood frame, so old they were almost invisible. Rose plus Vincent. Forever. Forever had ended, but maybe something else could begin. Chapter 3. What the Walls Remember. The diner gave up its secrets slowly, like a witness unsure whether to trust you. Every time I pulled back a layer, lifted a floor mat, peeled away water-damaged wallpaper, opened a cabinet that hadn't been touched in decades, something emerged. Not treasure, not in the way people usually mean, but pieces of lives lived. In the storage room behind the kitchen, I found menus, hundreds of them, stacked in boxes that had gone soft with humidity. Rosie's Blue Plate Special, $1.95, they announced in cheerful script. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a roll, coffee included. The paper had yellowed to the color of old bruises, but you could still make out the drawings. A little coffee cup with a smiling face, a slice of pie with a fork waving hello. Maya loved them. She spread them out on the counter like treasure maps, tracing the drawings with her finger. Can we make the Blue Plate Special? We don't have a working stove yet, baby. But when we do? When, not if. She'd decided. I'd been sleeping in 2-hour shifts, waking to every creak and car engine, sure that someone would come. The police, a code enforcement officer, someone with the authority to tell us we couldn't be here, but nobody came. Commercial Street had been forgotten by everyone except the people who had to live on it. During the day, while Maya drew pictures on the back of old receipt paper, I worked. I fixed the bathroom first, found the shutoff valve in the basement, discovered the pipes were intact, just closed. When water finally coughed through the taps, rust red, then clearing, I felt like I'd struck oil. I patched the broken window with cardboard and duct tape. I replaced the worst of the ceiling tiles with ones I salvaged from the storage room. I cleaned the grease trap, which took a full day and made me gag so hard I thought I'd pass out. But at night, when Maya was asleep, I studied the photographs from the shoebox. Rosie's face aging across decades. Vincent disappearing from the pictures after the mid-70s. The diner, slowly emptying. You could see it in the background of the later photos. Fewer customers, more empty booths. One night I found something else. I'd been working on one of the booth benches trying to repair the split vinyl when I noticed the wood base felt hollow. Not damaged, deliberately hollow. I pressed along the edge and heard a click. A hidden compartment, no bigger than a shoebox, opened under the seat. Inside, a leather journal, swollen with humidity but intact. The cover read Rosie's Daily Log in faded gold letters. I opened it carefully. The entries started in 1959, recording daily receipts, supplier orders, employee schedules. Rosie's handwriting, neat and careful. But as the years progressed, the entries changed. Less business, more life. June 3, 1974. Vincent's cough is getting worse. He won't see a doctor. Says we can't afford it, but he can't work the grill anymore either. I'm doing double shifts. My feet are killing me. November 18th, 1976. Vincent died this morning, 48 years old. The diner was full today. Everyone came. Mrs. Chen from the laundromat brought flowers. Marcus from the barbershop closed early. They all remembered how Vincent always gave free coffee to anyone having a rough day. We went through 12 pots. Nobody let me charge them. I read through the night. The entries grew sparser through the 80s. The neighborhood changed. Families moved out. Businesses closed. Crime moved in. Regular customers stopped coming. Suppliers raised prices. The city assessed new fees. April 15th, 1985. Can't make the tax payment. Can't make rent to myself, if that makes sense. The building's paid for, but the city doesn't care. They want their money. I'm 62 years old and tired. Maybe it's time. But she hadn't closed. She'd kept going for another year. The entries getting shorter, more desperate. October 12th, 1986. Served 8 customers today. Barely covered the cost of keeping the lights on. Maria asked for her last paycheck. I gave her everything in the register and told her not to come back. She cried. I cried. What am I even doing anymore? October 30th, 1986. Last day. I can't. I just can't. Whoever finds this place, I hope you have better luck than I did. Vincent and I gave this place everything. Maybe that was the mistake. Don't give it everything. Save something for yourself. The final entry was dated November 1st, 1986, 39 years ago. Locked the door for the last time. Left the deed under the register. If someone young and stupid enough finds it, maybe they can do what I couldn't. Maybe they can make this place live again. I hope they do. I hope someone remembers us. I closed the journal carefully, my hands shaking. Maya stirred in her sleep across the room. Someone remembered. I'd make sure of it. The next morning, I took the journal to the county clerk's office. The same woman helped me, and when I showed her the entries explaining that this was a documented historical business, that it had been a community anchor, her expression softened. This is good, she said. This is really good. If you're serious about restoration, about bringing it back as a community space, there are grants. Historic preservation funds. It'll take time, but... She looked up at me. You've got time, right? I thought about Maya, asleep in a booth. I thought about Vincent giving free coffee to anyone having a rough day. I thought about Rosie's last entry. I hope someone remembers us. I've got time, I said. If you're enjoying this journey so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Chapter 4. Small Victories, Borrowed Tools. The first volunteer appeared on a Tuesday morning. I was trying to repair the front door. The hinges had rusted through and the whole thing hung crooked, when a voice behind me said, "You're doing that wrong." I turned. An older man stood on the sidewalk, maybe 70, with oil-stained work pants and a toolbox that looked older than both of us combined. His face was mapped with wrinkles, his hands thick with old calluses. "Excuse me." The hinge. "You're trying to force it. You need to drill new holes, use wood filler on the old ones. That frame's rotted." He stepped closer, squinting at my work. "You trying to fix this place up?" Trying being the key word. He grunted. "I'm Marcus. I used to have the barbershop 3 doors down. Closed in '94. He nodded toward the empty storefronts. "You the one who's been living here with the little girl?" My defenses went up. "Is that a problem?" "Depends. You planning to trash it or fix it?" "Fix it." He studied me for a long moment, then set down his toolbox. "Let me show you how to do this right. I've got some wood filler in the truck." That's how it started. Marcus came back the next day, with lumber scraps and new hinges. He taught me how to plane the door, how to set hinge pins properly, how to think 3 steps ahead instead of just reacting to whatever broke next. He worked with the patience of someone who had nothing but time and the skill to use it. "Rosie fed my kids," he said one afternoon, sanding the door frame smooth. 60s, 70s, money was tight. She'd always find a reason to give them pie. "End of the day, it'll just go bad," she'd say. But we all knew. He paused, running his hand over the wood. "This neighborhood, we looked out for each other. Then everyone left. Good to see someone trying to bring some of that back." Maya adored Marcus. She'd sit on the counter, swinging her legs, asking him questions about the neighborhood. He told her about when Commercial Street had a parade every 4th of July, when every storefront was full, when you could walk from one end to the other and know everyone's name. With Marcus's help, the progress accelerated. We fixed the door, then moved to the roof. The leaks were worse than I'd thought. The tar paper had degraded, shingles missing in patches. But Marcus knew someone who knew someone. And suddenly there were 2 more men on the roof with us, laying new tar paper from a roll that fell off a truck. Their words, not mine. The electrical came next. I couldn't afford a licensed electrician, but Marcus had a nephew who'd done residential wiring for years. He came on a Saturday, walked through the building with a voltage tester, and shook his head. "This panel shot. Code violation, fire hazard, the whole 9 yards. You need to replace it." He did some calculations on his phone. "Panel, breakers, wire, junction boxes, you're looking at $800 minimum." I didn't have $800. I had $63 from a day labor gig, and that had to cover food. But the nephew, Daniel, thought for a minute, then said, "Tell you what, I'll do the labor free. Just buy the materials. And I know where to get surplus panels. Might be able to get you out for $300. $300 was still impossible, but Marcus pulled me aside later and pressed $200 into my hand. Pay me back when you can, or don't. Just get the lights working so you don't burn the place down. People kept appearing. Mrs. Chen from the old laundromat building. She'd moved to apartments across town but still came back to visit, brought cleaning supplies and helped scrub the kitchen. A woman named Jada, who'd grown up eating at Rosie's, brought her teenage son to help rip out the ruined coolers. A man I didn't know left a box of dishes on the front step with a note. My mom worked here in the 70s. She'd want you to have these. Maya and I painted. We started with the bathroom, covering 40 years of grime with 3 coats of white semi-gloss, then the kitchen walls, then the dining room. We used the cheapest paint we could find, but each brushstroke felt like reclaiming territory from decay. The first time we got the electrical working, Daniel throwing the main breaker while I held my breath, the overhead lights flickered on, and the whole diner hummed to life. Maya cheered, Marcus smiled, and for just a second I could see it. Not what it was, but what it could be. That night, after everyone had gone home, Maya and I ate dinner in one of the restored booths, peanut butter sandwiches and apples, nothing special, but we ate under working lights, at a clean table, in a space that was slowly becoming ours. "Daddy," Maya said, "are we going to open the restaurant?" I'd been avoiding that question, even in my own head. Opening meant permits, inspections, licenses, equipment I couldn't afford. It meant risk and exposure, and probably failure. But looking at her face, hopeful and trusting, I couldn't say no. "Maybe," I said. "Someday." She smiled, satisfied, and went back to her sandwich. Above us, the lights hummed steady. Outside, traffic passed, and the diner breathed with us, patient, waiting to see what we'd do next. Chapter 5. The Names in the Wood. The building revealed itself in layers, like archaeology. Every repair uncovered something else, a stratum of previous repairs, modifications made decades ago, evidence of lives that had moved through this space with purpose and care. I was working on the floor when I found them. The linoleum had bubbled in the corner near the kitchen, water damage from the old roof leaks. I'd been putting off the repair because I couldn't afford new flooring, but Marcus convinced me that leaving it would just spread the problem. "Pull it up," he said. "See what's underneath, might be surprised." So I pulled it up. Under the black and white checkerboard there was older linoleum, red and cream, in a starburst pattern. And under that, wood. Original wood flooring, oak planks, dark with age but solid, and carved into the boards near the wall where booths would have hidden them names and dates. R. Cordero, 1959, Vincent C., 1959, New Beginning, and then, scattered across other boards, Maria S., 1961, First Day, JJ was here, 1965, Rosa Plaus Vincent, Gaidas Forever, 1970, Still Here, Still Fighting, 1982. I sat back on my heels, staring. These weren't vandalism, they were intentional, carved with care, a record of presence of people who'd mattered to this place. Maya came over, crouching beside me. "What is it?" "The people who worked here," I said. "They left their names." She traced the letters with her finger. "Reverent. Can we leave our names too?" I thought about it, about adding our mark to this timeline, about claiming our place in the building's memory. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, we can." That afternoon, I used a wood-burning pen I borrowed from Jada. She did crafts, had a whole kit, and carefully added, "Jack plus Maya, 2025. Second beginning." It felt presumptuous and hopeful and terrifying all at once, but the floor discovery led to something else. When I pulled up more linoleum in the kitchen, I found a loose board. Under it, wrapped in oilcloth, original blueprints for the building dated 1958, and a construction contract. The building had been designed specifically as a diner. The kitchen layout, the counter position, even the booth configuration had been planned from the beginning. This wasn't a space adapted for food service. It was born for it, and tucked with the blueprints. A business license application, never submitted, dated 1987. Rosie had been planning to reorganize to try again, but something had stopped her. I took the blueprints to the city planning office. The woman there, Janet, her nameplate read, studied them with interest. "These are good," she said. "Original commercial plans, professionally drawn. If you're trying to get approved for reopening, this helps. Shows historical use, establishes precedent." She looked up. "You're really going to try to open this place?" "I'm really going to try. It won't be easy. Health department, fire marshal, occupancy permit." She pulled out a checklist, started marking boxes. You'll need a commercial kitchen inspection, proper ventilation, grease trap certification, ADA accessibility compliance. The list went on. Each item felt like a mountain. But Janet did something unexpected. She wrote down her personal email. I'm not supposed to do this, but send me photos of the space as you work. If I can see you're making legitimate progress, I can help navigate the bureaucracy. The city actually has an interest in seeing these old commercial spaces come back. Redevelopment, tax base, all that. She smiled. Plus, my grandmother ate at Rosie's. I grew up hearing about it. Everyone had a story about Rosie's. The diner had fed the whole neighborhood for 30 years, and the memory lingered like the smell of coffee that still haunted the walls. That evening, Marcus brought someone new, a man about my age named Carlos who worked for a restaurant supply company. Marcus says you're trying to reopen, Carlos said, walking through the kitchen with a professional's eye. Equipment's mostly shot. You'll need a new grill, new fryer, new flat top. The hood system might be salvageable if you can get it cleaned and certified. I can't afford any of that, I figured, but we get trade-ins sometimes. Used equipment, restaurants that closed or upgraded. Not pretty, but functional. I could probably outfit this kitchen for $3,000-4,000, and I'd take payments under the table. $3,000 or $4,000 still seemed impossible, but it was better than the $15,000 or $20,000 new equipment would cost. Give me time, I said. Time's the one thing you've got, Carlos said. Place has waited 40 years. It'll wait a little longer. That night I added up the numbers. The back taxes, which the city had agreed to restructure as a payment plan, $150 a month for 10 years. Equipment, $4,000. Permits and licenses, $800. Basic supplies, dishes, initial food stock, $1,500. Working capital, unknown. Total, $6,300 to get to opening day, plus monthly costs I couldn't calculate yet. I had $140 in my pocket and no income, but I also had a building with our names carved in the floor. I had people who kept showing up to help. I had blueprints that proved this place was meant to feed people, and I had Maya asleep in a booth believing we could do this. The odds were impossible, but we'd already done impossible things. Survived homelessness, claimed this building, started bringing it back to life. What was one more impossible thing? Chapter 6. Storm Night. The weather turned in October. I'd been tracking it on my phone, a cold front moving down from Canada, colliding with warm air from the south. The forecast kept upgrading from rain to severe storms to potentially dangerous conditions. Marcus came by 2 days before it hit, looked at the roof, and frowned. That tar paper's fresh, but you don't have proper flashing around the ventilation stack. And the soffit on the west side, you see that gap? Wind gets under there, it'll peel the whole thing back like a sardine can. We spent a day and a half reinforcing, using every scrap of material we could find. But I could feel how temporary it all was. How much faith we were putting in duct tape and roofing cement and prayers. The storm arrived on a Thursday night. It started as rain, steady and cold, the kind that finds every gap and leak. Maya and I had moved our sleeping area away from the known roof problems, but by midnight water was coming in places we hadn't expected. Around the front window frame, through a crack in the foundation we'd never noticed, dripping from light fixtures. I set out pots, buckets, trash cans, anything that would catch water. The sound was surreal. Percussion on metal, on plastic, a dozen different notes creating a discordant symphony. The diner was weeping. Then the wind hit. It started as a howl through the gap in the soffit Marcus had worried about, a high whistling that made Maya press her hands over her ears. Then it escalated, a roar like a freight train shaking the building. The front windows flexed inward, the glass bowing, and I wrapped myself around Maya, ready to shield her if they shattered. They held. But upstairs, there was an apartment above the diner, empty for decades that I'd barely explored. Something gave way. I heard it over the wind, a crack, a crash, then the sound of water pouring. "Stay here," I told Maya, but she grabbed my hand. "Don't leave me." So we went together, climbing the back stairs with a flashlight, into the upstairs apartment. The roof had opened up in the northwest corner, a section of tar paper and plywood torn away, exposing the interior to the full force of the storm. Rain poured through, cascading down the walls, soaking everything, and the water was running through the floor, finding the seams, heading for the diner below. I grabbed a tarp from the supplies we'd stashed upstairs and tried to throw it over the hole, but the wind caught it, nearly yanked it from my hands. Maya grabbed one corner and together we fought the tarp over the gap, weighing it down with anything we could find. Broken furniture, chunks of plaster, An old radiator that must have weighed 80 pounds. It wasn't enough. The wind found purchase, threatened to rip everything away. "Daddy, the water." I looked where she pointed. A steady stream was running along a floor joist, following the path of least resistance toward the diner's ceiling, and below that spot, the electrical panel. If the water reached the panel, we'd lose power. Worse, we could have a fire. I ran downstairs, grabbed the main breaker, and killed all power to the building. The lights died. The refrigerator we'd finally gotten running fell silent. In the darkness, lit only by lightning flashes, the diner felt like a ship in a storm, groaning and shuddering with each gust. We spent the rest of the night upstairs, holding the tarp down with our bodies, getting soaked, shivering. While the storm raged, Maya cried. I told her stories, made-up adventures, fairy tales, anything to distract her from the cold and fear. I told her about Rosie, about how she and Vincent had probably survived storms like this, how the building was stronger than it looked. I'm not sure I believed it, but Maya needed to hear it. Dawn came gray and exhausted. The wind eased. The rain became drizzle. We climbed down to the diner and assessed the damage by daylight filtering through the plywood-covered windows. Water had come through in a dozen places. The ceiling tiles I'd replaced were soaked and sagging. The floor was wet. The booth cushions we'd been sleeping on were drenched. Everything smelled like mildew and defeat, but the structure had held. The walls were still standing. The foundation was intact. Marcus arrived at 7 a.m., took one look, and made phone calls. By noon, 6 people were on the roof, reinforcing the repairs, covering the hole upstairs with proper plywood and tar paper. Jada brought industrial fans she'd borrowed from somewhere. Mrs. Chen arrived with hot food, the first hot meal we'd had in 3 days. "This is what we do," she said simply. "You're part of the neighborhood now. We take care of our own." That afternoon, a car pulled up outside. New, expensive, out of place on Commercial Street. A man in a suit got out, looked at the building, then came to the door. "I'm looking for the owner," he said. "That's me." He looked skeptical. I was soaked, exhausted, probably looked homeless, which technically I still was, but he handed me a business card. "Robert Chen, Commercial Real Estate. I represent a developer who's interested in this block. We're prepared to offer $60,000 cash for this property. As is, no inspection contingencies. $60,000, more money than I'd seen in my life. Enough to get Maya and me into a real apartment, with money left over. Enough to walk away from this exhausting, terrifying, probably doomed project." I looked at Maya. She was watching me with those big eyes, waiting to see what I'd decide. I looked at Marcus on the roof, at Jada running fans, at Mrs. Chen unpacking food, at the names carved in the floor. "Not interested," I said. "You haven't heard my full offer." "Not interested." He left his card anyway. "When you change your mind, call me. The offer's good for 30 days. After he left, Maya hugged me. "We're staying?" "We're staying." But that night, alone after Maya fell asleep, I picked up the card and stared at it. $60,000, security, safety, everything I'd been trying to give her, and all I had to do was walk away from Rosie's, from the names in the floor, from the community that had rallied to save a building that barely mattered to anyone outside this dying street. I put the card in my pocket and lay awake listening to the fans hum and the building drip and breathe, wondering if I was brave or just stubborn or just stupid. If this restoration story has you hooked, hit like. It helps us bring more lost places back to life. Chapter 7. The Recipe Box. Maya found it on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the storm. We'd been cleaning out the last unexplored cabinet in the kitchen, upper storage above where the prep station had been, pulling down decades of mouse-chewed towels and warped baking sheets. "Daddy, what's this?" She'd found a metal box, the kind people used to keep recipes in. It was rusty at the corners but otherwise intact, with Rosie's Kitchen painted on the lid in careful cursive. Inside, recipe cards, hundreds of them, written in the same handwriting I recognized from the journal. But these weren't just recipes. The first card read, "Meatloaf, Vincent's mother's version. She taught me this in 1957 before we were married. Said if I could make this, I'd be good enough for her son. Ground beef, onion, breadcrumbs, egg, ketchup, brown sugar. Bake at 350 for an hour. The trick is the brown sugar in the glaze. She said sweetness makes people forget their troubles." Another, "Hash browns, Saturday morning special. Grate the potatoes rough. Don't rinse them too much or you lose the starch. Salt, pepper, butter in the pan until it's almost smoking. Press them flat. Don't flip until the edges are golden and crispy. Vincent always said these were better than his mother's. I never told her that. Each recipe had notes, memories, instructions that went beyond cooking. Apple pie, Marcus's favorite. His wife left him in '72, took the kids to Detroit. He came in every Tuesday for a year and ordered pie. I never charged him. Make it tart, he liked it that way, said sweetness was overrated. There were recipes for every regular customer, annotated with their stories. Grilled cheese and tomato soup, JJ's sick day meal. Biscuits and gravy, Mrs. Chen's first American breakfast, 1969. Coffee cake, Saturday morning neighborhood meeting special. This wasn't a restaurant's recipe collection. It was a diary of care, a record of how Rosie had fed people not just food but attention, memory, belonging. Maya spread the cards across the counter, reading them slowly, asking me what words meant. Daddy, who's JJ? I don't know, baby. Someone who mattered to Rosie. At the bottom of the box, a sealed envelope addressed to whoever comes after. I opened it carefully. Inside, a letter. To whoever finds this, if you've found these recipes, you're probably trying to open this place again. Good. I hope you do. I hope you make it work where I couldn't. But understand something. This was never really about the food. The food was good. Vincent made sure of that. But that's not why people came back. They came back because we knew them. We knew Marcus liked his coffee black, 3 sugars. We knew Mrs. Chen couldn't eat pork. We knew when someone was having a bad day just by how they walked through the door. We knew their names. We remembered their stories. And when they sat in these booths, they weren't strangers or customers or transactions. They were ours. We were theirs. That's what this place was. That's what it should be again. I'm leaving you the recipes, but recipes are just ingredients and time. What matters is why you cook them and who you're cooking for. Vincent died broke. We poured everything into this place and had nothing left when the neighborhood changed. Some would say we were fools. Maybe we were. But we fed people who were hungry. We gave people a place to belong. And when I walk past these empty booths now, about to lock the door for the last time, I don't regret it. Make something good here. Make something that matters. Rosie, October 30th, 1986. My hands shook as I finished reading. Maya was quiet, watching me. Is she sad? She asked. Yeah, baby. I think she was. Can we make her recipes? Can we make people feel like she did? Such a simple question, such an impossible promise. But I thought about Marcus bringing tools, about Jada and her son ripping out broken coolers, about Mrs. Chen bringing hot food after the storm, about strangers leaving dishes on the doorstep. This neighborhood, this dying, forgotten street, it remembered what Rosie had built here. They were waiting for it to come back. We can try, I said. That week I made my first real decision about the diner's future. I couldn't afford to buy all new equipment. I couldn't afford a full kitchen refit, but I could afford to do what Rosie had done. Start small, focus on the basics, build from there. Carlos came through with used equipment, a griddle that had been in a food truck, a small convection oven from a bakery that closed, a 6-burner range that just needed new igniters, all of it battered, none of it pretty, but functional. He took a down payment of $500, money I'd earned doing under-the-table construction work, and agreed to let me pay the rest in installments. You're crazy, you know that? He said as we installed the griddle. The restaurant failure rate is like 60% in the first year. Good thing this isn't really a restaurant. What is it then? I thought about Rosie's letter. It's a place to belong. He laughed, but not unkindly. Yeah, okay. Still gonna need permits. The permit process was its own nightmare. Inspections revealed violations I hadn't known existed. The grease trap needed professional certification. The hood system required CFM ratings I didn't understand. The bathroom needed grab bars and a specific toilet height for ADA compliance. Every inspection revealed 3 more problems. Every problem cost money I didn't have. But Janet at the planning office kept helping, showing me which violations could wait, which needed to be fixed immediately, how to navigate the bureaucracy. And slowly, painfully slowly, the checklist started getting shorter. One morning I woke up and realized we could actually do this. The kitchen was functional. The dining room was clean. We had plates and cups and silverware. We had recipes. We had a reason. We just needed to open the doors.